My name is Father Joe Boenzi. I'm a Salesian from the California province, and my parents were cooperators. I grew up in Salesian Parish, so I've been a Salesian basically since I was 4 years old, so there you are. Right now I'm in Berkeley at Don Bosco Hall and at the Institute of Salesian Studies, and also I'm a professor, full professor at the Dominican School of Philosophy and Theology, where I teach church history, ecclesiology, and I teach Salesian subjects as well. SYLC got started, well, in 1984. It was, we had a lot of problems with our parish and camps, summer camps. We had a number of resident camps. The problems were basically that we had a lot of new counselors who were high school kids, and they were very enthusiastic, but they didn't really know too much of how to be with children, how to be with other teenagers. And so they were making all kinds of mistakes, and they were feeling really terrible. They didn't know what they could do. So a number of the Salesians in the province wanted to have a summer camp training session, and then this became known. I was vocation director at the time, and so I worked with the youth ministry people at St. Dominic Savio's, especially. That was Veronica Van Deventer at the time, and then also with those working at the camps in Middletown at Cap St. Francis, and also with several other places, St. Mary's Parish. And so we organized for 1985 what we called the SYLC, Salesian Youth Leadership Camp. We called it the first time. 1985 was the International Youth Year, and Pope John Paul II had written a letter to young people. And so with the International Youth Year from the UN, we put together that camp. It started, I was hoping we could do this all the time, but the only thing I could get was we could do it that summer. So we had it. It was such a wonderful experience for the young people, but also for all of the leaders that they were pushing, we've got to do this every year. Now, just to say this, we had prepared it actually. It was 7 days, and we had prepared for 7 months for that 7-day experience. I personally went to every single parish and camp and school, youth ministry, campus ministry, to get people interested, and then working with them as those leaders, the youth ministers, the campus ministers, prepare the young people for that experience. So that's how it was. And I believe that it was because of all the preparation that each center did among the young people, with the leaders, with the animators and the Salesians, that was why it was a success. And the next year we did it again, and then it became, by the third year, people thought that it was founded by Moses and had always been there. But anyhow, it was. Well, the structure was basically of the oratory. During theology, I was lucky to do my theology in Turin, and I was active at the Salesian oratory at the Crocetta in Turin. And so I knew how firsthand then how the oratory worked. Not just that one, but all the oratories. I was familiar with Valdoco, with about 5 other oratories that we as oratory leaders used to go to and work and coordinate with. And we had done things in leadership with the kids, so I was used to that. So when the camps were saying we need leaders, I went to that model. So that was our model, was the oratory. The second was who was working with us. Well, the most interested were those at St. Dominic Savio, and that first year they brought 28 young people to that SYLC. Some places brought 2 young people, but Savio brought 28. So I worked very closely with with Veronica Van Deventer, who was the youth minister of our parish at Savio at the time. I worked very closely with Sister Ann Cassidy, who was at that point the principal at Dominic Savio School, and she knew these kids and she came up as well. And so these were some of the local people, and some of those who were the youth leaders there were they were becoming young adults at that point, and so they were interested. From the other places that we worked with, well, we worked with those who were the camp masters, and these were young, newly ordained priests, really, and brothers who were we had a camp in Middletown, California. We have the camp at Camp St. Francis. So I worked with them because they knew. I worked with Father Jose Rojas and the Penny Club in Watsonville, and we brought some youth leaders there. And so this was their vision of, because most of those young people were from immigrant families. So what were their sensibilities? And then also with Father Bill Schaefer, who was director of the Boys and Girls Club in Boyle Heights, worked with him. So these were the people. We only had 6 centers the first year, but we had from most of the places 6, 7, 10 kids. Savio had 28, so that's how it grew up. The next year, 1986, we had 18 centers, and we had 124 young people. So the first year we had 72 young people. Second year, 124 young people. And then it grew from there.
Mm-hmm.
My hope was that as we exposed these, they were all our own kids from our schools and our parishes, and expose them to an experience of not just going to camp and having, but that they would be peer ministers and they would be young youth ministers, giving them an experience of ministry. My hope was that this would become a priority for them, not just a summer, but that something would take root. My hope was that we could really work also on vocations. I was vocation director, and that's really the reason I did it, so that with our young people, as they were involved, they could get a sense of, maybe I could do this with my life. I could give my life to the gospel, to young people. This was my hope. And I worked closely with the sisters because, as the SDB vocation director is often called by the Daughters of Mary Help Christians to help with their vocation days. So I was interested in vocations for the sisters and for ourselves. And for cooperators, I brought along a number of young cooperators on the team, and they talked up about cooperators. So we were working with the Salesian family. We actually even had volunteers of Don Bosco who were not allowed. We don't give their identities. Everyone thought they were cooperators, but they did a lot in encouraging the young people about what they were doing and asking those questions. Have you thought about doing this for your life? So it was vocation consciousness was all part of it. So, and I would say that after that, our pre-novitiate program and our sisters' beginning postulant program, we got a number of young people from SYLC that year and the next few years. So actually, it began to influence in bringing young people in. The early challenges was, a lot of it was financial, but we didn't worry about it. We said, well, we'll just do what we can. So we weren't out there to make any money. We did not make any money. The first year we came out with $25 in the black. We were not out to make money. We were out to give this kind of a program. The early challenges is some of the adults who were used to just the summer camps, they said, what are you doing? What is this for? And even though I explained, for 7 months I was going around it. This is the ideas, and this is what we're doing, and it's vocation, awareness. But so people who were used to the way we always did things, I don't say they put any roadblocks in there, but it was just like they couldn't see what was the point of doing anything like this. Well, I think the reason it survived is because it's the formula of the oratory. We have had boys and girls clubs, but which was important in this country in an urban kind of situation. But we never did we really have an oratories. I think our summer camps, or basically the parish day camp, was the closest thing to oratories. And I think SYLC, with that formula, was able to instill into those parish day camps that sense of presence. There was prayer every day. We had the opportunities for this, and so the youth leaders worked with the kids in prayer. And the other thing is that we were able to bring in many young people to our camps. With a few counselors, many young people. That was the point, because oratories opened the gates. So I think that's why it worked, and I think because it's the whole thing of going on. When I got back to Italy, as a matter of fact, during those years, someone asked, I'd heard about it, they wanted to see, so I showed them the schedule, and they go, "This is just the oratory. What's new here?" I said, "What's new is we never had the oratory in California, and now we do, and I think we still do." The other thing, though, that was important, it was vocation awareness. And if you were to ask me what would I want to see today, we have to be explicit when we talk about vocations. We can't just do things and hope the kids get the idea. We have to be explicit. What's God calling you to do with your life? Where's your heart with Christ? And that there are so many, God calls in many ways. But everyone is called. Everyone has a vocation. So as married people, as single, as religious, it's the vocation. And that's what SYLC is all about, needs to be about, vocation awareness and promotion.
Hmm.
Well, I haven't been directly with young people basically since those years. So now I work with graduate students and seminarians in Salesian sources, to go to the roots, to go to the sources, as well as theology. But what I did learn during those years, especially working very closely with the Archdiocese of Los Angeles in their beginning youth ministry programs, is the more we can do with others, the more we can do with the local church, the more it benefits our young people, the more it benefits our youth leaders, our adult leaders. Because there's a lot of things. Everybody does something for young people. Everybody does. So it's not just Salesians. So the more we can team up with these other agencies, talking Boys and Girls Club language, or with the local church, or with parishes, the better it is, I think, and the more options we have for our young people. And also, I believe there's many parishes that are struggling, that are not Salesian parishes, struggling for youth ministry. We have a lot of young people have gone through SYLC. We could offer help to many parishes with these same young people who could go and help out in a parish for the summer, to do just maybe 2 weeks of a summer camp, because they've never had one ever. It would make a big difference. So we need to look at our young people as resourceful enough, and they have the imagination. And I have seen they're very enthusiastic. They would want to do I know, because they've told me, we could bring this. I'm from this parish, and I come to Savio because Savio is alive, and my parish, nothing happens. I wish we could bring this to my parish. Okay, well, that's what I was hearing when I was involved, up until 1990. But enough young people said those things to me, and I think we could still, and we've had now more than 30, almost 40 years in this, so we could bring something to many people. So that's what I think we could do. It's an educational endeavor, and you need to really work at it. And so I know that you work at it, but really don't get discouraged that it doesn't come out the way you hope for, because it's not in our hands, it's in God's hands. If you give yourself completely to those young people, if you try to educate them in the faith and to the faith, and if you keep close to Don Bosco's spirit of what the oratory was an opening in the neighborhood to every young person. Everyone was welcomed. They didn't pay fees. They didn't have to become members of any. They became members of the oratory. So I think with that, and with this sense of vocation for the young, for yourself, I think you could do a lot of good stuff. Dive in and open your heart to what the experience is. You'll meet a lot of other young people. This is the highlight I see every year of young people meeting young people. And so you'll be in communication with many after that. That experience will open you up to many friends, but at the same time, keep in mind, like Dominic Savio, who was a youth leader, said, my friends are Jesus and Mary. It's from this attachment to Jesus Christ, attachment to Mary, our mother, that then you can grow in your attachment, in your friendship with other young people, your peers, in many different places. So please do this and realize God is calling you to whatever, in a special way, in a unique way God calls each of you. Be generous, respond.